Hey, boys and girls. Today we're going to do a writing lesson. And so our writing unit goes right along with our reading unit. Yesterday we talked about the genres of our books. And so today, as we look at some of Cynthia Rowland's books, we might think about what genre are some of her fiction books. So when you look at that first page of the slideshow, you might want to go back and ask yourself, what are some of those genres that you see for her text? Okay, so let's get started with today's lesson. Cynthia Rowland is an award-winning author of books for children. She will be our new writing teacher during this unit. We're going to listen, discuss, and study her texts. We're going to learn about the qualities of good fiction writing and be inspired to try new writing techniques, especially narrative techniques. Let's look at and find out what all Cynthia has to teach us about writing. Hopefully, when you looked at all of her texts, you noticed that there were many different genres, like poetry, short story, fictional chapter book, a biography, picture books. There's realistic fiction. Um, Cynthia Rowland loves a variety of topics, but a lot of times in her writing, we will see her writing about nature and animals and nighttime and love and loss when we lose people that we're close to. She writes about living in the countryside and her family and her childhood. And she even writes some things about some non-living things like the scarecrow. Um, so you see a lot of things that are similar all throughout different books, like especially animals and pets. So today we're going to read An Angel for Solomon Singer. Um, I want you to think about how she shows emotion in this book. What kinds of words does she use to think about building that emotional connection between the reader and the story? So that's a narrative technique that authors are going to use. We definitely felt that in Wonder. We were so happy when Augie was happy, and we were so sad when he was sad. And when the characters felt mad, like Via, when she felt mad, we felt mad right along with her. And so we want to look at this book and see how Cynthia puts emotions into her book. So I'll point those out as we go. This story is An Angel for Solomon Singer. Solomon Singer lived in a hotel for men near the corner of Columbus Avenue and 85th Street in New York City. And he did not like it. The hotel had none of the things that he loved. His room had no balcony. He dreamed of beautiful balconies. It had no fireplace, and he knew he would surely think better sitting before a fireplace. It had no porch swing for napping, and no picture window for watching the birds. He could not have a cat. He could not have a dog. He could not even paint the walls a different color. And oh, what a difference a yellow or a purple wall would have made. So when I read this page, I feel like Solomon is living in a place that's not as familiar. He's living in a strange place, and that place is nothing like what he would consider a homey, cozy, comfortable place. So already I'm feeling a little sad for him. It is important to love where you live. And Solomon Singer loved where he lived, not at all. And it was this that drove him out into the streets each night. It was dreams of balconies and purple walls that took him to the street. And Solomon Singer wandered. So he's walking out in the city. He was a wanderer by nature anyway. He had grown up in Indiana, a place absolutely famous for wandering. I'm going to pause for just a second. Whenever I hear that word wandering, it makes me think of walking, but you're not walking to any one particular place, and you don't have a certain time to get there. So when I wander around, I really have no purpose. I'm just kind of like randomly choosing directions or randomly choosing how long that I'm going to walk. All right, back to the story. So much of Indiana was mixed into his blood that even now, 50 odd years later, he could not give up being a boy in Indiana. And at the end of the night, oops, technical difficulties. I'm in the wrong spot over here. Take my picture out. There we go. All right. He could not give up being a boy in Indiana, and at night he journeyed the streets, wishing they were fields, gazed at the lighted windows, wishing they were stars, and listened to the voices of all who passed, wishing for the conversations of crickets. So instead of streets, he wants fields. Instead of lights, he wants stars. Instead of voices, he wants crickets. So definitely this is like the opposite of Indiana, if I'm picturing that. Solomon Singer was lonely. He had no one to love, and not even a place to love. And this was hard for him. He didn't feel happy as he wandered. And so I get a feeling that he would have been happy wandering around Indiana, but wandering around New York, not the same feeling. One evening, somewhere between Columbus Avenue and Central Park West, Solomon Singer wandered into a small restaurant called the Westway Cafe. He liked that name. He was from the Midwest, and he liked to imagine he was, each day, making his way west, that someday he would again be west, and so that name meant something to him. He opened up the plastic menu before him, and there he read these words: "The Westway Cafe, where all your dreams come true." The menu told him how much hamburgers and bowls of soup and pieces of pie and other things cost, but it didn't put a price on your dreams. So I think these are not the nighttime dreams. These are your hopes and dreams. These are what you wish would be happening. A voice, quiet like an Indiana pine tree in November, said, "Good evening, sir." And Solomon Singer looked up into a pair of brown eyes that were lined at the corners from a lifetime of smiling. Solomon Singer smiled back at the waiter and ordered a bowl of tomato soup, a cup of coffee, and a balcony. But he didn't say balcony out loud. So the author is using that technique that we learned in the last quarter about that internal dialogue. So we've got the external dialogue with the quotations between Solomon and the waiter, but then we have also that dialogue between the narrator and the reader, telling you, he's thinking balcony in his head, but he doesn't say balcony out loud. The tomato soup was delicious, and he even got a second cup of coffee free. And the smiling-eyed waiter told Solomon Singer to come back again to the Westway Cafe, and Solomon Singer did the very next night. So all of this tells me emotionally that he feels like this man is friendly, and maybe this will make this living in the city where he doesn't want to be a little bit more bearable. It did tell us in the earlier chapter that he was lonely. Maybe this is somebody who will make him feel less lonely. He ordered 2 biscuits and some bacon, and a large glass of grapefruit juice, and a fireplace. But he didn't say the fireplace out loud. The smiling-eyed waiter was glad to see him, glad to have him, and told him, "Come back again." And Solomon Singer did the very next night. When I read this part, I think about the fireplace and how the menu said where all your dreams come true. So in his head, he feels like ordering the balcony and the fireplace is a way to make those dreams come true. For many, many nights, Solomon Singer made his way west, carrying a dream in his head, and each night ordering the dream up with his supper. When he reached the end of his list of dreams, the end was the purple wall. He simply started over again and ordered up a balcony, but he didn't say the balcony out loud. Look at how the illustrator has the dreams in there. The balcony, the fireplace, the porch swing, the picture window, and look how the illustrator shows the phases of the moon. And the full moon is the plate coming in front of him. So I can feel like that emotional is built up, like he was lonely, a little less lonely, a little less lonely, not so lonely, not so lonely, completely not lonely. The illustrations will often help tell the story. That's another technique that narrative authors will use. And slowly and quietly with time, something happened. On Solomon Singer's walk each night to the Westway Cafe, the streets began to move before him like fields of wheat, and he thought them beautiful. And the lights in the buildings twinkled and shone like stars, and he thought them lovely. And the voices of all who passed sounded like the conversations of friendly crickets, and he felt friendly toward them. So this tells us that he's even less lonely, even when he's not at the Westway Cafe with with the waiter. He's seeing the sights around him becoming friendlier and friendlier, and they remind him of home. So rounding the corner off Columbus Avenue, seeing the lighted window of the Westway Cafe, Solomon Singer felt as he had as a boy, rounding the bend in Indiana and seeing the yellow lights of the house where he lived. So it's almost as if in this picture he's coming down the street, and instead of the Westway Cafe, he imagines he sees his home in Indiana with all those fields and all those stars. So the two are kind of blending together in his imagination. Walking into the Westway Cafe, he felt at home as he had in Indiana, and the smiling waiter greeted him as familiarly as his parents had once greeted him in Indiana when he would come in from wandering the roads that he loved. So that tells us that he feels like the Westway Cafe is like a home away from home. The waiter's name, it turned out, was Angel. Sometimes we think about a guardian angel looking out for us and making our lives better. Solomon Singer went to the Westway Cafe every night for dinner that first year, and he still dines there. He hasn't given up carrying a dream in his head each time he goes, and one of his dreams has even come true. He has sneaked a cat into his hotel room. Solomon Singer has found a place he loves, and he doesn't feel lonely anymore. And if you are ever near the Westway Cafe, wishing instead you were in a field of conversational crickets beneath the shining stars, go inside. An angel will take your order, and Solomon Singer will smile and make you feel that you are home. So when we think about that emotional language throughout the book, we've gone from a kind of sad, lonely beginning to a much more family-oriented, friend-oriented feeling at the end. We have more of a happy ending for Solomon. So thinking about our genre lesson, do you think An Angel for Solomon Singer is a real story, or is it an imaginary story? Do you think Solomon is a real person and the waiter and all that stuff that happened in this book? Is this like a biography about a true story about something that really happened? Or did Cynthia Rowland imagine the story? So, right, this is an imaginative story. She may have felt lonely at some time in her life, and then she decided to make up this character and this situation for this character to be in that was realistic, but it's not exactly her. And this was maybe a way that when she was feeling lonely, she had somebody who made her feel better. And so she took that story as like her inspiration. As we read more of Cynthia's stories, we will see how she writes about experiences that are true and other experiences that are fictional, but they're usually inspired by something real from her life. So in your journal today, I want you to think about what's making Cynthia Rylant a good teacher of writing. What can we learn from Cynthia? What can we learn from what we know about her so far that will help us think about why is she a good writing teacher? What are some of the characteristics that she puts in her stories, in her narrative stories, that we could use in our narrative stories? Because guess what? We're going to write a narrative to go along with this unit. And so the things that we see in her books are things that we want to try to use in our writing. So today you can just kind of make a list. Remember, the 2 questions are posted on the next slide, and you can just write those in the writing section of your notebook. Or if you have a whole notebook for writing, you can put that in your writer's notebook. And then I will look at those when you come to school face-to-face. And if you don't come to school face-to-face, then you're going to have to submit a photo of your journal for me. Okay? All right. Well, I will talk to you soon. Try to come to your Zooms whenever you can.